Hey everybody, this is Sandra Foley from Fashion Horns Magazine and Media, and we are here in New Providence, New Jersey with the multi-dimensional therapist, DIANE Rose. Hi Diane, how are you doing?
Hi there. How are
I'm
you?
so excited to have met you and connected. How did you know that you were an intuitive healer? And explain to our audience what it is also.
An intuitive healer. I like multifaceted. If people come into my office, I'll turn around and I look at them. Sometimes a dis-ease can start in a past life and you're pulling it through from life to life to life. Sometimes people come in with physical disabilities and it's not there because each organ in the body not only has a physical function it has an emotion attached to it, intellectual thought, and a spiritual action. That being said, they may come in with a physical problem. Let's say arthritis, let's say heart problems. What I do is I go into the system and I find out where it's coming from. 100% it starts on the emotional part of the person. By the time it hits your body, it has gone through all the others, spiritual, intellectual, and emotional, and then boom. By the time it hits the body, it's at the last chamber, and you really got to dig in deep to get to the point of origin. If you don't know where the point of origin is, you cannot heal it. Just like a doctor a lot of times, let's just say, unfortunately, you have cancer. They say, we're going to give you 5 years of remission. Remember, every cell in your body has memory. You know your name, you know where you live, you know if you're married, you know if you're male or female. Your cells know that. No one has to bop you over the head in the morning and say, your name is, this is where you're going, this is where you work. That also is with anything else you've gone through. If you developed asthma, you kind of keep it in so you can get rid of it at the point of origin. Same with any dis-ease, anything emotional too. And let's say you came from a battered household. That's another thing. Being battered.
Yeah, I'm all about emotions. A lot of the people that I hang out with.
Well,
Yeah.
then if you're holding on to it, you got to get to the point of origin. If you're battered, most men or women will end up with people that will batter them.
Yes, I see that. Yes.
Because if that's what you're used to, that is your idea of love, then that's love to you. Being beat, being put down. These are the people that usually attract narcissism.
So tell us about this interesting story, how you came to know that you had these abilities.
I was very, very young. My mother and father went through a divorce. Everybody divorces. I'm not putting down divorce. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I was outside in front of my mother's home because my father lived somewhere else, and I was with my little brother. He was 7 years old. I was all of 9. 2 police officers walked by me, and this is it. I went into what is a twilight. I knew I was here, but I also knew something different was happening. I looked down at my little brother, and I said, my brother just died. He didn't know. He was playing. He was joking around. They went into the home. They came out of the home. I walked up to the house, and my mother was on our kitchen table, and she was sobbing. And I looked and I go, Mommy, what's up? And she said, Billy just drowned. And I just turned around and I saw my brother standing, not Technicolor like you or you, not in Technicolor. I saw him like faded, but I knew it was my brother. I knew the energy of who my brother was. And I just said, Mommy, don't worry. He'll be okay. And a grieving mother, she goes, he's dead. Dead, I understood. And then all of a sudden I went into my room and I call it communing. And that's when I started to realize that there's something different. Couldn't understand it, but I was not afraid of it. So I know it was good. So that's how was my first introduction.
Okay.
But I would have to say it was probably already there, but it hadn't been ignited or woken up.
So I know you talk a lot about your Chinese medicines and reflexology. A lot of people that follow my group, like we're interested in, like, I can't say psychic, but like, how would you relate to people like the paranormal group like us? like as far as intuitive healer, is there like, I can't say you're a psychic, but how would you relate to people that, let's say they come to you, but they don't want to know about what to eat or anything like that. They want to know about their past. Like, do you also do things like that as far as your past lives or what?
Yes,
Who's with you and things like that. It's a different name for it through you,
yes,
right?
there's like two facets of me. There's the body work, the
Yes.
healing aspect of it, where I literally get into the body and rearrange it.
And that's good to know.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it actually detoxes. But sometimes when I'm working on someone, when it starts to detox, I'm reading the material, it's detoxing. A lot of times you could have had daddy abandoned you. All right, I'm going to be reading that coming up. We start to talk about it because it's coming out of
Yes.
your body. They relate to it. They also detox. A lot of people, I don't care what emotion you give off, you're crying, you're laughing, any sensation, you're detoxing. All right? So that's the body aspect of it. Now you go to the intuition. That's a whole different gamut of what I do. That's, I would say it's also a baseline for a Shiatsi master, which is identical to an acupuncturist. But I use my hands, I do not use needles. All right, I have the same amount of education. So if you're working on an intuitive level, energy lines, okay, that is a whole different. I go back into past life, present life, future life. The channel will open up and people from the other side will start to come through. All right, that is totally, it's like two different facets. It all depends when a patient, client comes in here.
Exactly, what they're looking for. Yes. And what kind of tools do you use for the intuitive side? Like when the person's coming through.
I just sit there. It's
I
like
mean,
a
like
marriage.
you're just feeling it, right?
You know the best way to put it?
It's hard to explain, right?
It is a very hard thing to explain, but I'm like looking, but let's just say there's a little TV up here, and they're showing me all images.
Okay.
I will see them like physically. I will say, let's just say your mother passed away, and she loved to wear lipstick. She would come through with vibrant lipstick. She'll come through on her personality, or sometimes they will come through, and it's like they'll show me how they passed. Whether it was tragic, whether it was easy, they come through. Because a lot of times people come in here and they haven't resolved the death of a husband, a wife, or anything like that. We go back in the energy, and then that person comes through and they can have a dialogue with that person that passed away, and which is very enlightening for them, because a lot of people, I have to go into, what do you feel about death? A lot of people feel like death is almost like, poof, you don't exist. That's not true. The only thing that passes is your body, who you are. And physics has proven this, and mathematics. Energy never dies. It takes different forms, but it never dies. Mathematics has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt there's infinity plus one dimension. And again, the little amoeba is just there. We can see it. Then we go to the bugs, second dimension. They can see one, the amoeba. Amoeba can't see two. Now, three-dimension, here we are. The three-dimensional people, we can see the insects. We can see the little amoeba. Both those can't really see us at all. Now, infinity plus one, dimension 4, 5, 6, 20,005, 20,090. There's so much more going on out there than is right here in our perceptions of what we have gone through to get to this point.
Now, how do you handle a skeptic? There's a lot of them.
Well, I have people that'll come in here also, and they say, well, I don't believe in God. God doesn't exist.
Okay.
In order to make that statement, you had to believe to disbelieve. You had to know something.
Yes.
You had to have awareness. So I kind of like look at them, and then once I start to talk to them. The other people that don't think I work in God's light, I do. I work in Christos. All right? People will question me. This is against my religion and stuff. But when I start to talk to them, and I say, I'm one with God the Father. I said, this is what I do. That irons that out. Takes the wrinkles out.
Okay. What are some misconceptions about being an intuitive? Kind of like they're comparing you to a medium, isn't that like a misconception?
I don't like the word psychic.
Yeah,
That
that's
word
what I thought.
I really don't
Yeah.
like. Mediumship, medium is you're a medium between, I'll say, heaven and earth.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Intuitive is pretty much the same thing because you're a medium. You're still pulling from higher ground and you're bringing it down to earthbound. It's the psychic that I get a little
Yeah.
wary about.
It's very broad. Like right away, people think psychic, fake, or something. You know, they always have this side and that side.
Yeah.
Tell us another story about like your connection
With the other
growing
side?
up. Yeah.
Okay.
Something that like is like something that is more like relatable. Like the person listening to it can actually be there with you. You know what I mean? You told me a story that you were like 10 years old, 11 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
As I told you earlier, that my mom and dad divorced and my father had a home. He moved out of that home. I went to sleep one night, and all of a sudden I was at the front door of my home, family home. And this man, he was gorgeous, breathtaking, charismatic, everything you would want in a significant other. He's standing in front of me. He opens the door and he goes, "Hi, Diane." And we go up the stairs. In my home, I had 4 bedrooms. The man turned around and he goes, "In this one room, every gem you could imagine." He goes, "This is all. You could have everything here." We turned to the other side. Every car or beauty that you would want. All right, we went to another room and it was like prestige, money. And then we went to the final room and it would be almost like eternal life. And we sat there. I was in my home. I don't know about your audience. In my home, we had one of those drawstrings. You pull it down, the stairs go up
Yes.
to the attic.
Yeah. I had that in one of my houses. Yeah.
So I was turning. He was saying, "All this is yours." He was beaming everything. And I just looked and I saw the string hanging and I pulled it down. As I pulled it down, the most gorgeous white light hit me in the face with streams of like lavender and gold. And I started to walk up and it was so heaven. And as I turned and looked at him, he turned into the devil. And at that point, I was being tempted. Which way do you want to go?
How would you explain that? Like, what does that mean to you? What was going on?
Well, I was in total peace.
Yeah.
At that point, I knew I was being tempted.
You were being tempted.
We're all tempted at one point or
Okay,
another.
yeah.
Even if you're in a marriage, somebody walks by, we're all tempted.
Yeah.
All right?
What advice would you give to someone who is starting to explore their abilities? Because like sometimes I feel like like my mother was a clairvoyant. My brother had the webs over his eyes.
So did I.
You did. Well, my
Yeah.
mother burned them because she didn't want him to see the future or whatever
Yes.
back then. But like, what advice would you give to somebody like who they think they might have the same type of intuitive or empath or?
I would say anyone in your community. If you're a musician, you want to hang out with your people that are musicians.
Yeah.
So that you can turn
Yeah.
around. You're not going to put a tennis player on a football court. They'll have no one to play with. So I would say to them, get around your community. People that think the way you do, they can help direct you. A lot of times I can say to people off the bat, you should be in this aspect of it.
Yeah.
You should be in, it all depends on the individual when they're coming in. And where they kind of where they want to go with it. Some of us use it for healing. Some of us use it to connect with the other side. Some of us use it to write books. So it all depends on where that individual, where they see themselves now and where they want to go with it.
Okay. So a typical session, you have different types of sessions. What would be like a typical session? Like what's the most common one that people come to you for?
Energy.
Energy. So what does that consist of, like a typical session?
Well, not only do I do mediumship, I
Okay.
also do astrology. Everybody wants to know.
Great.
Everybody wants to know
Yeah.
timing. Sir Isaac Newton used astrology.
Yeah.
So it is a science. I use that for timing. I go into the mediumship. Astrology will back that up because whatever I see in astrology backs up what I said in mediumship. I could do numerology. Numerology will back up the mediumship. So I'm not a cookie cutter, and I use kinesiology. So I'm working with 3 4 modalities when someone comes into my office.
Okay.
That's what I work right around whatever they need to be heard.
How do you redefine yourself and grow?
This whole weekend was a lot of my frequency rising, all right, and learning more information. I learned it from people I come in contact with. I learn it from my patients. I mean, they could come in here, and there was one patient that came to me. It was a woman, and she came in, and I was talking to her, and I kept seeing a noose. And I didn't say anything to her. And I kind of kept it to my side. And I said, I can't say this. I can't say this. And finally, at the end, she goes to me, as we're almost walking out, she goes to me, is there anything else? The noose popped down again. I said, did your son try to commit suicide by hanging? And she hit the deck. And I just turned around, brought her back in, and we started to communicate. He did not commit suicide. And the one question she asked me, I'm so frightened he's going to try it again and again and again and again. This was probably about 15 years ago.
Okay.
He's still living. I said no.
Oh.
And he rearranged his life.
So do you have people that come back to confirm some of the things that you have told them?
Oh, this one's a good one, yes.
Yeah.
All the time
good.
I get it back. I had a very young woman that came, 28 years old, came into my office. She kept coughing and coughing and coughing during the COVID years, all right? And she had a mask on. And I sit 6 feet away from someone. I said, you don't have to wear it. And she said, are you sure? I said, yeah. She puts the mask down. I said to her, go have your lungs checked. And she said, I went to a doctor. He said, it's fine. It's from wearing the mask. And I went, okay. Another time, go have your lungs checked. She turned around and she goes, okay. And then third time I said it to her. All right? She left me, I remember it was the end of October. She had gone to an ears, nose, and throat doctor. He said, it's fine, nothing's wrong, don't worry. In March of the following year, all right, 5 months later, she went to a pulmonologist. He said, you have cancer. Oh. Yeah. And how I know this is the woman wrote me a beautiful email telling me all of this. And she said, if it wasn't for you, I would have died.
Wow.
So, yes.
Okay. Do you ever get any verification from the other side, somebody you had that passed and came back to you?
Most definitely.
Wow.
There was a young man, strapping young man, I must say. He was like 33 years old, and he came into my office. He was like 6'2". Incredible man. And I looked at him, and I'm wondering to myself, why is he coming? When I put my hands on him for a hands-on healing, my hands went all over the place. They went to the lung, they went to the spleen, the stomach, all over, and I'm going, I was like, I couldn't get my own bearings. And I go, I'm going to every organ. And he turns around, he goes, I'm loaded with cancer. And I said, oh my God. And I kept putting my hands on. I gave some treatments. I'm not God, but whatever energy that passes through me, I can prolong it a little bit. So he was feeling great, terrific. Even his numbers were doing better. So he went off, he started playing golf, this, that, and the other thing. All of a sudden, it was probably, and I did work on him periodically. 5, 6 months later, I get a phone call. Diane, I'm feeling horrible. My bones. And I go, it went to the bones. So he comes in. And of course, when they're giving you a lot of meds, your feet are going to swell. And I went down to his feet, and I was on my Shiatsi mat on the ground, and they were swelled. And I started pushing to get the toxins out to be eliminated, void defecation. All of a sudden, I got a tap. No. I'm pushing, and I'm pushing. Tap, second time. I'm pushing and pushing. Tap 3, and then I went. After 3, if I'm told something, you stop. So I started the tears are running. I got very close to him.
Yeah.
All right, we were very close friends. And the tears are running down. And he goes, Diane, tell me what it's like on the other side. I know I'm dying. And I went, I don't give out names.
Yeah.
I turned around and I said, I can only tell you what they have shown me.
Yes.
And he goes, tell me. And I went all around his body. And I finished, got up. His father was there to take him home. And he died 3 days later. And the next thing is I had it scheduled with an intuitive. All right, it was about 2 weeks after all of this went through. And I'm sitting in my office and I have my feet up on my desk, waiting for this nice reading to happen. All of a sudden she goes to me, Diane, I have a young man here. Now I have, as I told you, my brother who has passed. They were young, quite a few
Yes.
people. So I just said, shoot. And she turns around, she said, all he keeps saying to me, do you understand this? It's just the way you said it was, Diane. Just the way you said.
Wow.
And then she gave, I'm getting the goose pimples.
I know.
And then gave me his name. And I felt, there's verification.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I just went, oh, it was, the tears, of course.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm glad we connected because, a lot of people are into this. What's going on in the world nowadays, like people are turning to this type of thing. They're getting back to basics. Like people are starting to move back in with family and get closer. Because like Jersey, of course, is expensive, but I see a lot of people just trying to get closer, be together. Yes. But tell us, we're going to be closing out soon, and you're actually going to be a part of a special project that we're doing with the godmother. I can't tell you her name, but she's the godmother of fashion, and you're going to be included in a special project that we're not telling you yet. But tell us about if someone wants to contact you, someone wants a reading, tell the audience where to find you, what all the different facets that you do. I know, you'll be here.
I'm a Shiatsi master, I'm a reflexologist, I'm a cranial sacralist, a kinesiologist, herbalist, which falls under the Shiatsu, and of course a CMT, certified massage therapist. And I kind of incorporate all this in when I'm doing energy work on a person. And then of course there's the intuitive, which is the astrology, again, kinesiology, numerology, all energy. You can contact me on my website. It's Diane, D-I-A-N-E, Rose, R-O-S-E, healing.com, or there has my telephone number, has everything you would need.
Tell the audience, with all this stuff going on in the world, what's some good advice to give them? How to heal themselves?
First of all, if you don't know something exists, how do you change it? You can't. What's happening right now, all throughout the world, everything is popping up all over the place because it has to be looked at, has to be changed. I say you have to go from channel 2 to channel 7. And that's why it's all coming up, because if you keep keeping it under the rug, you're going to get nothing accomplished. So everything is coming up so it can be cleaned up, addressed by the right people.
Awesome. We want to thank you for coming and sharing all your specialties. We're going to see you again in August. And you're going to be a part of our project. You're going to be featured in the next issue, which will probably come out maybe September. So thank you for coming again.
My pleasure.
We will be back. And thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.